So those of you who know American sport, this is called a clutch point. It's when you score the winning point at the very end of the game. It's the moment where everything aligns, thousands of hours of practice, your skills, your vision, your patience, and it all comes together. We believe that clutch moments in design are all around us now more than ever in a fragmented brand world that we live in. We believe it's time to get it right, and you will meet the opportunity of the market. So yeah, we believe bold, head-turning, adventurous design enhances brands with their audience. Are you ready to do something great? So yeah, we're an independent studio, founded and based in London and working with clients globally across the UK, Europe, and the US. We're a small team and a bunch of strategists, designers, writers, and developers, and we all get involved in the creative thinking. And we work for everyone from brands from startups to sort of globally renowned organizations. What do we love? So we love to create brand strategies, ownable, unique brand strategies that stand out, then turning those into scalable, codified visual identities, and then also designing and building innovative digital solutions. They're kind of our core challenges that we love. When someone comes with one of those challenges, we get super excited. We don't focus on one sector like a lot of agencies do. I think especially in that branding space, it's really important that we have the variety. So, you know, we've worked on kind of insurance to food and beverage to sports to tech. And we borrow from, you know, what we could use in education might translate to sport and vice versa. So it keeps it really interesting for the team. We haven't just seen it one way. So we've seen lots of different ways of doing it and lots of different ways of applying creative to solve briefs, which keeps it exciting for the team and for me as a founder. Some of our clients, you'll recognize some of these logos, and some hopefully you'll recognize in a few years' time when they go gangbusters. As I said before, we do have quite a lot of startups on our books, tend to be kind of early stage or funded startups. So they're on a big curve upwards as time goes on. Our team, so you got me, top left, founder and creative director. Ollie, who sits next to me here, who's senior designer and kind of leads up most of the creative. He's going to talk about the creative in a minute with you. Molly, who's our designer, who's peeking ahead over the screen behind me. Drew, our developer, who builds and codes all our websites. Tarek, who is our strategist and interrogates our clients to build brand strategies, which again, I'm going to walk you through for this project shortly. And then Bella, who basically looks after the biscuit tin. Services, like every agency, we kind of try and group our services into buckets. And here we have, strategy, creative, design, digital, and content. The ones highlighted here are the services that we delivered on the project we're about to talk you through. So it really was in the sort of sweet spot of all of our deliverables, and services. So yeah, it's a really core project and a really sort of interesting one to talk through because we went through all of these kind of services. So Chai, you've probably never heard of Chai because they're a tech startup in London, and they're doing great stuff. So this is a summary. So as you can see, the picture on the right, it's a platform. So Chai combines thousands of data points and AI to democratize commodities price forecasting, as well as offering a new insurance to protect companies from price risk. What the hell does that mean, I hear you ask? So they basically, the platform you saw there is the first part of their product, and then what it gives is price insight into the commodities that feed or are part of the products that are on our shelves in Tesco's, on Amazon, etc. So it could be wheat, as shown here, which is in bread. It could be cocoa beans, it could be metals, it could be anything that forms anything that you buy. So they basically created a platform that democratizes access. So traditionally, this price forecasting and modeling is reserved for big banks and huge conglomerates that can have a whole team working out, you know, what the price of wheat's doing in the future. They've put it into a platform that anyone can access. So smaller companies, coffee startups, bakery startups, etc., can access and see. And it gives them the opportunity to see the price of the commodity and see if they want to buy it now, hold on, because there's something happening in the world. It might be political unrest, or it might be a shortage or weather or shipping patterns that are going to create pinch points in the price. And they basically take all of that data and AI and put them together to create, forecasts, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months forecasts about the price. Secondary to that, they've also introduced, and one of the reasons they wanted to do a rebrand was an insurance product that allowed companies to basically de-risk themselves against price change. So, for example, the price of grain, if it was going to go through the roof, it would be kind of something they could mitigate by buying lots now or holding on and buying it later. So they have that insurance piece as well. So that's why they came to us for a rebrand. As the kind of a visual sort of summary of where they were. So as you can see, the founders of the company there, they're about 25 now and growing. Started about 2 years ago. They're fairly well backed by some significant VCs in London. So they're getting good traction. The product's really interesting and everyone likes to use it. The logo on the left is where they kind of started out when they began. They had a freelancer do it. Didn't have too much rationale meaning, but it also didn't scale. You can see on the website that the word mark doesn't scale. The superscript AI was difficult, etc. So there was challenges with that. Also, the kind of dark, unapproachable website top of the visual and the top of the two on the left, and then a kind of a fact sheet, which again didn't have too much character. They use a lot of black and different things just didn't sort of gel with who they were as a company. And then in the middle, 2 colors. It was the only kind of request that they wanted from us as an agency is to try and keep one of those colors in the branding. So it was the orange or the purple, which we did. I'm sure you've seen some images online of this, but that's kind of the only thing that they requested would stay one of those. So the brief, quickly just talk you through, relaunch Chai, speak to our audience better, present our personality. So the current brand identity didn't match who they were. Include the insurance product to sit alongside the platform. They didn't have that up until this point. And then look attractive for Series A, which was their next round of funding that they want to go to, which will really send them into the stratosphere. A brief that we really love and excites us that is end to end. So yeah, Shaq looking super happy there. Timeline. I thought it was interesting just to touch on the timeline. This is kind of we use a fairly standard process for running projects through, and we tweak it depending on budget, time, and then deliverables. But phase 1 would tend to be strategy. So all centered around a workshop. There'd be a bit of immersion at the beginning where we're talking to customers, the clients, the stakeholders, just immersing ourselves in the business as a whole, reading documents, etc., to really form a workshop that's unique to them, that will allow us to ask the questions to garner the information that we need to build a strategy. Strategy delivery, there's obviously backwards and forwards and testing the waters and things like that. So that kind of crosses over with the creative, which is phase 2. Tone of voice and messaging sort of falls off the back of strategy. So what we're saying, how are we saying it, who are the different audience types, all that kind of stuff. And then once that's kind of locked down, then we really move into phase 3, which is creative production, which could be the assets that they need from, presentations to social media to, in this case as well, a website. Once we've got tone of voice and messaging down, we can write copy for website, we can plan the content, we do wireframes, understand the hierarchy of the page, test those, and then move into kind of website design and website build. And then we go through a phase of testing and then we launch it. And this one ran for about 13 weeks in total, and we delivered on time. They're under some pressures from the insurance regulators to deliver this one. So this is kind of, it was a crunch timeline, but we managed to get it all done. Normally a project of this kind of size would probably run for a few more weeks just to make sure there's enough time in between. Sorry if I'm talking too fast. Strategy. So we'll get into the project now. We use a framework called 4Cs, which is not uncommon in agencies to kind of delve into the brand strategy. So it's comprised of 4Cs, obviously. So company is the first one. So everything we do is we're trying to get reductive thinking. So we're trying to basically put everything into the kind of sausage maker and pull something out at the end that's more refined. So we brand truths and strengths. So what can they say about their company that no one else can? normally that takes a while to really squeeze it down. The customer, so how do they affect the customer? What do they need? So that might be building personas of the customers, talking to customers, and how does the product benefit the customers? So what does it do for them? And understanding what those things are. The category, so how do they sit in the category? Are they different to other people? Are they, how do they stand out amongst their competitors? In this case, they didn't really have any competitors, so it was kind of a bit of an easier win there. But obviously some companies that we work with do have lots of competitors. So we're about kind of creating that differentiation so they stand out. And then what's happening in the world that's could drive the business forward. So in this case, obviously, we're in a cost of living crisis where the prices of everything is going through the roof. So anything anyone can do to, save costs on their production costs, and then the supermarket will really help someone. So it's a really important kind of purpose this company has into, the benefiting the things we buy in the shops. And where all of that meets in the middle, that is the opportunity for the company. So that's where our brand sort of strategy sits. Tarek here is running the workshop. All workshops they're normally in a room that we all get involved and we all sit around with the client. Normally there's kind of between 6 and 8, 10 people in a room. And you'll see there's 3 versions here. There's a whiteboard, there's a rack of writing, and there's scribbles on the wall. Tends to be that we're just trying to really capture and tease out lots of information. And what tends to happen is that we have a whiteboard, and this is one from the workshop, or a few around us that are trying to capture everything that's said, trying to draw conclusions and position the brand and look at all those different points we talked about in the 4 C's and really understand where they're going to go. The founders or the customers of the company, they normally have the answers in their brain, but it's just about teasing them out and getting them to step away from thinking like they're the founders and thinking like they're the customer. You'll see on the right-hand side, we have kind of hot words and creative brain food. So again, we're trying to always find things that we could latch onto creatively, whether it's a word or a statement or something that someone says to drive kind of the creative forward. So all of that combines into a huge deck that's a strategy, and we try and distill that down, like I said, into that reductive thinking, into all of the statements that summarize. I'm not going to show you all of the versions or all of the stuff that came before this, but this is the end point, which is the positioning and the brand strategy. So the positioning of them was simplicity. So they allow people to simply find price information on the commodities that they are buying. Their manifesto was try and make the complex simple. Thousands of unique data points integrated by our proprietary AI technology to give you exactly what you need to make decisions that are on point and protected. So the decision making on point is around the app, the platform where you can get the price information, and the protection is about the insurance piece where you're protecting the price. The creative proposition, this is our kind of North Star. A lot of it, is the same thing. It's kind of where we use as a jumping off point for the creative team it's a big statement that allows different ideas to come out of it, and you're about to see some of the ideas, but it kind of gives you creative freedom and license to really create and do something new. So transforming the complex and risky to the accessible and safe. So it touches on those points again, something that's deemed very complex and then risky, which is buying commodities, and getting the price access to something that's accessible and safe. So it's democratized by accessible and safe is, there's not much risk in it when you can insure against price. And then the brand purpose, this actually came out of one of the workshops, and it was written kind of on the board on the day. So, and they were integral, the client was integral in creating this. So it's making the companies whose products we depend on every day more resilient. So that is going back to the fact that they really do impact the price of a loaf of bread, because someone is, seeing the prices and the volatility in the prices and allowing them to fix their prices for what goes on the shelves. So really interesting, and a great kind of purpose for the staff and team and investors to get behind as a whole. As with all these processes, lots of copy lines come out. There's a whole messaging matrix and tone of voice and everything behind this, but also came out of this was a strap line for them. So chai raw material markets made simple, so encompassing what they do as a whole in one kind of easy line. Again, you keep seeing the word chai, but chai is the master brand. That's the company as a whole. But then they had the two sort of sub products, which is the insight piece, the application, the online dashboard, and then the protection piece with the insurance. So they needed slightly different ways. So we needed a bit of brand architecture behind them. And then if they did create extra products, we know how they sit in the brand architecture and what leads and what doesn't. So I'm going to hand over to Ollie to talk about the creative. So yeah, this is kind of a flavor of everything we went through. We tried to include kind of key decisions in here. This is just a very, very tip of the iceberg of some of the stuff we create, but hopefully it'll give you a good flavor of what we did and how we went through the process of getting to the end point.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah. So yeah, as you can probably tell, that we're quite led by the strategy when it comes to our design process. This really helps to sort of create these creative guardrails that keep us as sort of designers in track and make sure we're not veering off into some sort of like obscure like design decisions. So every project that we do tends to sort of take form, start life like this. In one form or another, this is sort of organized chaos. Sometimes it's a bit neater, but it's just about trying to get down as many ideas as possible. And yeah, we're not super precious about how things really look at this stage. It is just about getting these ideas down and then distilling them into sort of creative territories that we can then sort of present to the client in a sort of clear and concise manner. For this project, we pitched 2 creative territories that I'm about to go through now. Yeah, so the first territory that we had, we called a macro view into the world that we impact. So this sort of takes form around this sort of fluid C shape that represents the value chain. So essentially, where the sort of commodity is born, take place in like the field or the factory or something like that, all the way through to the sort of end user, in this case baristas or coffee roasters or something like that. And then we sort of overlaid this this shape then to be able to use as like a window, a lens into the commodity. So here is just some further examples about how this this window, this device could be utilized, whether that's sort of like the top-down thing on the left or being able to sort of multiply it over on the right. It's essentially just sort of saying the same thing. And then, yeah, territory 2, this is quite a bit different, a lot more abstract, more digital and tech feeling. This is where we sort of introduce this sort of multi-element brand device here, which you can see with the sort of crystal ball-esque device in the center, surrounded by the outer ring, which we pitched to them that this could essentially be broken apart to be able to use the sort of the crystal ball for the insight piece and the outer ring for the protection, as you can see on the right there. Yeah, and what's cool about this is yeah, the crystal ball could be sort of transform into sort of any of the commodities that Chai are talking about at any of those sort of given moments in time. Yeah, as always tends to be the case, it was a pick and mix between the sort of 2 concepts. The client essentially went with concept 1, but with a sort of few key considerations to take on board before we sort of progressed onto the sort of next iterations. They felt that concept 2 was a little bit more too techy for them, and they really wanted to lean into the sort of human element, the sort of hands-on element of how the commodities end up with the sort of manufacturers and people like that at that end of the value chain. So yeah, they really like the macro view, the way of sort of highlighting that commodity. They really like the C shape, the symbol, and but they really like the sort of 2 elements, the multi-element device style thing that we had in concept 2. So yeah, it was more just a challenge of how we sort of combine those things and sort of move it forward to sort of where you sort of see it today. Yes, so we began sort of exploring the sort of the symbol to start off with, trying to see how we can add a sort of second element to this. This is just a small sample of the sort of hundreds that I think we sort of played around with in the end. You can see the ones that are kind of similar to the concept one on the top right, all the way through to stuff that's a bit more abstract in the top left. We sort of explored everything really. We left no stone unturned, came to sort of finding the right device for them. At the end, when we pitched this to the client, they were really wedded to what we sort of showed initially, but with trying to find this the perfect piece for the insight in the center. So we did explore like things like the perfect circles all the way through to squares, but one of the things that sort of really we really liked was the sort of organic nature of the piece in the center and how that can really sort of reflect the raw materials that Chai will be talking about. And then yeah, here we have the sort of final the crafted shape, which is yeah nice and robust, very functional. And it was kind of at this point that we knew that this shape here would become the sort of main focal point of the brand. We needed it to be like super simple to use, sort of knowing how we were going to use it as a lens and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure as sort of this symbol progressed throughout the brand in all the different ways that we'll use it, that we didn't want it to lose any of its sort of integrity as we move forward with it. Yeah, as mentioned a few times, the sort of kernel, as we call it, would be used for the insight piece and anything related to insight on the insight platform. And the circle for the insurance product, the protect piece, taken from the outer sort of C shape. In the image phase, we began looking at sort of two phases of imagery. This is sort of phase one, so this is the origin phase. So this is the place the raw material would be is where it's from. So this is like the wheat field, the copper mine, the plastic factory, whatever. This is the birthplace of said raw material. And then we complement that with phase two imagery. So this is the manufacturing stage, all the way from the car manufacturers to the bakers and sort of everything in between. We really wanted to be able to show the sort of human interaction with this raw material. So that's a case of like bringing in this hands. So you're seeing the people who are involved with that. And I think if we go back to sort of territory one, where it was the baristas, where we had to sort of step back from that sort of the end piece and try and go into the phase just before that. So it's the people that are roasting the coffee beans, for example, as opposed to the baristas that are serving the actual coffee. There's just some examples of how we brought the sort of the lens the device, the window, into this sort of finalized concept here. So you can see that this would be a sort of insight related piece with the copper mine and the guys making something out of copper, and the coffee plantation and the guy roasting the coffee beans. So you can see how these shapes are really sort of taking form now as we sort of progress through the brand. So then we move into the sort of the word mark and how we came up with the one that we did. I think chai is a hard word to make use. It's a hard word to sort of make work in a way, because this is obviously going to be a B2B brand, and we didn't want it to feel too consumery and consumer led. which it can do, and it also can feel like a T brand. So trying to play with the letters in a way where it was legible, and also trying to lean into the sort of AI element of this as well. So being able to bring that into some sort of focus through the word mark. I think like you can see with the uppercase I without any of the serifs, it could be read as Chow, and we were keen to sort of make sure everyone sort of knew what the word is, essentially. This is the final crafted word mark. I think it has like the perfect balance with the serifs on the I that helps really weight it, because we knew going forward that this would have to be paired with the brand mark as well. You can see here, so it does complement the boldness of the word mark, the brand mark, and it yeah, it gives balance to it. And this is obviously the final one. There was lots of sort of iterations in between this, trying to nail like the sizing and the spacing and all that sort of good stuff. Yeah, like Kevin said when he showed the where the brand was, it was very dark, and we were keen to like really step away from that and bring in some vibrancy, some bright colors and stuff like that to bring some more life to it. We were really lucky that we had all of these sort of commodities to draw from when it came to the color palette. It really helped us to, yeah, inject this color in a nice sort of natural way. This is the primary color palette. As you can see, we did end up keeping the orange, which I think that is used to sort of really represent the sort of AI and the digital aspect over all of the sort of natural colors here. We padded that out into a secondary palette also with like copper, coffee, and some other commodities. This is mainly used for the graphs and the charts and stuff within the platform itself. And for the headline font, we chose Reckless, which was by a foundry called Display. Chai wanted to be seen as obviously experts in their field, and for us, like a serif helps them feel like an authority, whilst this font also really complements the brand mark with its sort of characterful letter forms, and it's super approachable and friendly at the same time. Here you can see the full sort of suite of the sort of typefaces that we went with to build the brand. We've got obviously Reckless that I just talked about, Helvetica Now for the paragraph body copy. And we also use Lineker, which is by F37, which is super nice. And it helps us to inject a bit more of like a digital feel to the brand, really juxtaposing the headline font there. And it complements the sort of word mark as well at the same time. Yeah, here's just some examples of some white papers that we did where you can really see the sort of flexibility across these assets and how we use this shape, and how it's sort of really beginning to feel like a brand now, with the sort of insight and protection pieces, as well as using the word mark as a whole to sort of represent both chai as a whole, or basically combining the two things into one white paper if it's talking about an insight and protection piece or just an insight piece, for example. And yeah, here you can see a lot of the assets that we actually did. We've actually got one of the chocolate bars behind us. But yeah, this is everything really coming together now into this brand. Yeah, you can see all of the different assets there.
And as always, at the end of something like this, we deliver brand guidelines, which is their toolkit to success, really. I mean, it details everything. You see a few pages here. I think it's about 50 pages in length, but it details everything we've kind of talked through and how to use it and how to build assets so they can go away and create things, which they're doing really well across their own channels and in advertising and promotions and events and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really juicy, has the strategy up front and messaging matrix, etc., in there, so they can pass it on to new starters as well, and the marketing team can use it to roll things out. We'll talk quickly just about the website. I'm conscious of time just to make sure there's enough at the end. But so the website was an integral part of this project. It's obviously how they garner their inquiries. It's a really useful business development tool for them. And part of it was to, redesign it, rebuild it, restructure it, and help it talk to the customers a little bit more than it did before. Here's how it looked before. Pretty uninviting, uninspiring. Didn't necessarily talk to the customers in any way. Had a lot of their client logos and stuff on there, but didn't really talk about them very succinctly, and it was missing lots of functionality. And I think they built it themselves on WordPress, so they did a good try. But yeah, time to apply the new brand. Everything, all website projects sort of start here, so trying to flesh out what the sitemap is, what content goes on what pages, and then from there, once that's kind of agreed, then we go into copywriting and mapping that out across sort of prototypes and wireframes. In this instance, where we had the brand quite developed, we managed to kind of do hi-fi prototypes, which are kind of using some parts of the brand so they can start to feel how it comes together visually, rather than just sort of traditional black and white wireframes. And then there's the iteration through and changing around. But generally, this is kind of how the site comes together. So here's just a clip of the hero banner. So you can see kind of the creative, the idea in here, and the insight piece for the bread maker, and then the phase one imagery in the background, and then really flipping on their head as they were thinking about it, how they talk. So this is actually talking to the customer, to the procurement department in whatever company they're talking to, and really getting them. So it's transforming the way you look at raw material markets. So it's what they do. They want people to change the way and have access to more information than they currently have. You can see the brand, and actually the orange color works really well, and stands out and allows us to have that primary, secondary buttons and all the kind of toolkit that goes with. They actually took the UI toolkit that we created for this and implemented it onto the platform. So again, if you go to their website, you can see some screen grabs of their platform, and it looks really great, much more inviting and less heavy than the previous version. And people are really enjoy using it now. Lots of different pages to the website, as per the sitemap, but here's just some of the designs in long form. There's blog pages and product pages and team and about us and job ads and all sorts of things. And every website we build has a CMS, and we tend to favor Craft over any of the other ones just because it gives us the flexibility. It's quite powerful. This was plugged into their HubSpot CRM, so inquiries went straight into there, and then their sales team could deal with it. There was gated content that you needed to put in an email, and there's events and stuff on their website. So it did quite a lot for them, and it worked quite hard in that marketing kind of arena. It didn't just look good, but it also worked hard for them in campaigns, and they do a lot of SEO and digital display advertising as well. So it needed to do its job. We're designing obviously everything 3 times. So we've got the desktop we just see on the previous page, but obviously we're designing at mobile size and also tablets. So we design 3 times and then we build it 3 times responsively. So there's kind of the ability to hide information on mobile, so pages don't end up being too long behind carousels or scrolls, or what's some of the content that maybe you don't need to see on the fly on your phone. So we really try and figure all those things out and design them. And again, we do all the digital stuff in Figma. So we're sharing links and clickable prototypes with clients so they can comment directly on them. They can click them like they would be a website, and they can really get to feel how they will feel like to the customer using it. So that really helps us with collaboration. I think that's it.